Her fingers were stained red, the sweet scent of strawberries clinging to her skin like perfume. Emma Bennett had been up since dawn, arranging the plump scarlet fruits in neat wooden baskets at her market stall. At 19, she had been selling strawberries for as long as she could remember. It was her inheritance, the weathered stand, the knowledge of which strawberry varieties flourished in which seasons, and the small patch of land outside their cottage where her mother had taught her to coax the most flavorful berries from the soil. "Sweetest strawberries in Millfield. Picked fresh this morning," Emma called out, her voice carrying across the bustling farmers' market. Despite the early hour, the marketplace was already alive with vendors setting up their stalls and early shoppers seeking the freshest produce. Mrs. Peterson, a regular customer and the local bakery owner, approached with a warm smile. "Good morning, dear. I need your best berries for my special strawberry tarts." "I saved the brightest ones for you," Emma replied, reaching beneath her display for a basket she had set aside. "These Sussex Royals are perfect for baking, firm but sweet." As Mrs. Peterson paid and left, Emma's eyes drifted toward the gleaming structure that dominated the skyline beyond the marketplace, Hartwick's, the most exclusive department store in the city. Its polished glass facade caught the morning sun, making it glitter like a distant palace. Emma had never set foot inside. People like her, with dirt under their fingernails and second-hand clothes, didn't belong in places that sold handbags worth more than her entire year's earnings. Today was different, though. Today she had a purpose. The letter had arrived yesterday, addressed to her mother, Lily Bennett. The elegant cream envelope contained an invitation to a charity gala hosted by Hartwick's to celebrate its 75th anniversary. Former employees were being honored, and apparently Lily had once worked there, though she rarely spoke of it. "It must be a mistake," her mother had said, her face pale as she'd pushed the invitation away. That was another lifetime. But Emma had seen something in her mother's eyes, a flicker of longing, perhaps even regret. Lily's arthritis had worsened over the winter, making it impossible for her to attend, even if she wanted to. The strawberry stand was bringing in barely enough to cover her mother's medication. That's when Emma had formulated her plan. The invitation mentioned that attendees could purchase special commemorative brooches, with proceeds going to a local children's hospital. Emma had counted her savings, just enough to buy one of the silver pins. Her mother's birthday was next week, and Emma couldn't think of a more perfect gift than a small piece of the glamorous world Lily had once been part of. The morning rush at the market began to slow around 11. Emma arranged for Billy, the apple vendor's son, to watch her stand for an hour. She quickly changed out of her work clothes in the small shed behind the marketplace, slipping into her best dress, a simple blue cotton affair that had belonged to her mother in her younger days. She brushed her long auburn hair, securing it with a worn ribbon, and wiped the last traces of strawberry juice from her hands. "You look proper nice," Billy said with a grin when she emerged. "Got a hot date?" Emma blushed. "Just an errand. I'll be back soon." Her heart hammered as she approached Hartwick's imposing entrance. Two doormen in impeccable uniforms stood guard, opening the gleaming doors for well-dressed shoppers. Emma took a deep breath and walked forward, trying to project a confidence she didn't feel. Inside, the store was even more magnificent than she had imagined. Crystal chandeliers hung from coffered ceilings, while marble floors stretched in every direction. The air smelled of expensive perfume, and soft classical music played in the background. Emma felt immediately out of place, acutely aware of her simple dress and worn shoes. She approached the information desk, where an elegantly dressed woman with a pearl necklace regarded her with thinly veiled suspicion. "Excuse me," Emma said, her voice smaller than she intended. "I'm looking for the commemorative brooches for the anniversary gala." The woman's gaze swept over Emma's attire. "The limited edition Hartwick collection is in our fine jewelry department, second floor, but those pieces start at £500. Emma's heart sank. The invitation had mentioned the brooches would be £50, her entire savings. The invitation said £50 for the charity brooch. "Those are only available to gala attendees," the woman replied coldly. "Are you attending the gala, Miss Bennett?" "Emma Bennett. My mother was invited, but she can't attend. I thought I could purchase a brooch for her as a gift. She used to work here." The woman's expression hardened further. "I'm afraid that's not possible. The commemorative items are exclusive to our distinguished guests." She looked past Emma to the well-dressed couple waiting behind her. "Next, please." Humiliation burned through Emma as she was so casually dismissed. She turned away, blinking back tears, when a deep voice spoke nearby. "What seems to be the problem here, Mrs. Collins?" A tall man in his early 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, stood watching the exchange. His silver hair contrasted with eyes so dark they appeared almost black. There was something commanding about his presence that made everyone in the vicinity straighten slightly. "Nothing at all, Mr. Hartwick," the woman responded quickly. "Just explaining our policy on commemorative items to this young person." Alexander Hartwick, CEO of the Hartwick retail empire, studied Emma with surprising intensity. For a moment something flickered across his face. Recognition, confusion, or perhaps just curiosity. "And your name is?" he asked directly. "Emma Bennett, sir," she replied, fighting the urge to flee. His gaze lingered on her face, particularly her eyes. "Bennett," he repeated, as if testing the name. "And you mentioned your mother worked here once?" "Yes, sir. Lily Bennett, a long time ago." Mr. Hartwick went completely still. "Lily," he murmured, the name sounding almost like a prayer on his lips. He seemed to recover quickly, turning to Mrs. Collins. "Get Miss Bennett one of the brooches from my office, the special collection." "But, sir—" "Immediately, please." As Mrs. Collins hurried away, Mr. Hartwick turned back to Emma. "Please, would you join me for tea in my office? I'd be interested to hear how Lily is doing these days." Confused but unable to refuse, Emma nodded. As she followed him through the store, passing designer boutiques and luxury displays, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something that would change her life forever. The elevator to the executive floor was paneled in dark wood with brass fixtures that gleamed under soft lighting. Emma stood awkwardly beside the imposing Mr. Hartwick, aware of the curious glances from employees they passed. No one said a word, but their expressions spoke volumes about how unusual it was to see someone like her in these rarefied surroundings. "Your mother," Mr. Hartwick said suddenly, breaking the silence. "She's well, I hope." Emma hesitated. "She manages. The arthritis makes it difficult, especially in winter, but she's strong." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "And your father?" "I never knew him," Emma replied, watching as something flickered in his eyes. "Mom raised me alone." The elevator doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with abstract artwork and fresh flower arrangements. Mr. Hartwick's office occupied the corner of the building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. Emma tried not to gape at the luxurious surroundings, the antique desk that must have cost a fortune, the leather furniture, and the collection of rare art pieces decorating the walls. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. He didn't sit behind it as she expected, but took the chair beside hers. "How old are you, Emma?" 19, sir." He seemed to calculate something in his head. "And you've lived in Millfield all your life?" Emma nodded, growing increasingly puzzled by his interest. "Yes, in the cottage at the edge of town near the strawberry fields." Mr. Hartwick's assistant entered with a tea tray and the promised brooch box. After she left, he opened the small velvet case and presented it to Emma. Inside was not the simple silver pin she had expected, but an exquisite gold brooch in the shape of a strawberry, its surface studded with tiny rubies and emeralds for the seeds and leaves. "This is—" Emma gasped. "I can't accept this. It must be worth—" "It's priceless," Mr. Hartwick said quietly, "and it belongs with your mother. Please, take it to her with my compliments." Emma stared at him, thoroughly confused now. "Did you know my mother well when she worked here?" A shadow passed over his face. "Yes," he said after a long moment. "Yes, I knew Lily very well indeed." The drive to Emma's cottage took nearly 40 minutes, a journey that carried them from the gleaming city centre to the rustic countryside of Millfield's outskirts. Emma sat in stunned silence in the back of Mr. Hartwick's sleek black car, the gold strawberry brooch clutched tightly in her hand. She still couldn't understand why the CEO of Hartwick's had insisted on accompanying her home, or why he'd been so eager to see her mother again after all these years. "Your strawberry farm," Mr. Hartwick said, breaking the silence as they turned onto the narrow lane leading to the cottage. "Has it been in your family long?" "It belonged to my grandfather," Emma explained. "Mum took it over after he passed when I was little. It's small, but the soil is perfect for berries." The car pulled up to the modest stone cottage. Compared to the grandeur of Hartwick's, Emma suddenly saw her home through different eyes, the peeling paint on the shutters, the uneven garden path, the patched roof. But there was also the vibrant flower garden her mother tended, despite her arthritic hands, and the strawberry fields beyond, lush and green with ripening fruit. "It's lovely," Mr. Hartwick said softly, and Emma was surprised to detect genuine warmth in his voice. Lily Bennet was at the kitchen table, sorting through the morning's accounts when they entered. At 45, she remained beautiful despite the lines of pain that had etched themselves around her eyes and mouth over the years. Her auburn hair, the same shade as Emma's, was streaked with silver and pulled back in a simple knot. "Emma, you're back early." Lily's words died as she saw who accompanied her daughter. The ledger book slipped from her fingers, pages fluttering to the floor. Her face drained of color. "Alexander." "Hello, Lily," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's been a very long time." Emma looked between them, bewildered by the electricity that suddenly charged the air. "Mom, you know Mr. Hartwick?" Lily seemed unable to speak, her eyes never leaving Alexander's face. "Your mother and I were colleagues," Mr. Hartwick said, his gaze equally fixed on Lily. "Many years ago." "Colleagues," Lily repeated, a strange bitterness coloring the word. She finally tore her eyes away to look at her daughter. "Emma, could you put the kettle on, please?" Emma reluctantly moved to the kitchen, filling the old copper kettle and setting it on the stove. She positioned herself where she could still observe the two of them, now seated across from each other at the worn oak table. They spoke in hushed tones, but fragments of their conversation drifted to her ears. "Never told her," she heard Mr. Hartwick say. "What good would it have done?" her mother replied. "You were married. Caroline died 5 years ago." "I'm sorry to hear that, truly." Emma's hands trembled as she arranged teacups on a tray. There was a history here far deeper than a simple employer-employee relationship. She returned to find her mother wiping tears from her cheeks, while Mr. Hartwick sat rigidly, his knuckles white where they gripped the edge of the table. "Emma," her mother said, composing herself. "Mr. Hartwick tells me you went to the store to buy a brooch for my birthday. I wanted to surprise you." Emma placed the teapot on the table. "But I didn't expect this." She gestured vaguely toward the gold strawberry brooch, now lying between them. Lily picked up the brooch, her fingers tracing its contours with familiar reverence. "I never thought I'd see this again." "It was always yours," Mr. Hartwick said. "I've kept it safe." Emma poured the tea, questions burning inside her. "How did you two really know each other?" The two exchanged a long look before Lily sighed. "I wasn't just an employee at Hartwick's, Emma. I was the head jewelry designer. Alexander and I—" She faltered. "We were in love," Mr. Hartwick finished, his voice steady. "Very much in love." Emma nearly dropped the teapot. "What?" "It was complicated," her mother continued. "Alexander was engaged to Caroline Henley. Their families had arranged the match when they were children, a merger of 2 retail dynasties. Breaking it would have cost him everything. I designed this brooch," Lily touched the golden strawberry again, "for our last night together. Alexander had it cast in gold as a surprise, but I couldn't keep it, not after everything." Emma felt dizzy with revelations. "So you left?" Lily nodded. "I discovered I was pregnant shortly after. I came here to my father's farm and never looked back." The teacup in Mr. Hartwick's hands clattered loudly against its saucer. "Pregnant?" he echoed, his face ashen. "Lily, are you saying—" His eyes darted to Emma's face, searching. The silence in the cottage grew deafening. Emma felt the world tilt beneath her feet as understanding dawned. "Mum," she whispered, her voice cracking. Lily reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "I should have told you long ago. I thought it was better this way." Mr. Hartwick, Alexander, stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. 19 years, he said, his voice rough with emotion. 19 years, and you never once thought to tell me I had a daughter." "You were married," Lily shot back. "Your family controlled half the retail market in England. What was I supposed to do? Show up at your wedding with a baby and destroy everything you'd worked for? That wasn't your decision to make." Emma pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Stop it, both of you!" She was shaking now, tears blurring her vision. "Are you telling me that you're my father?" Alexander stopped pacing, turning to face her. For the first time, Emma saw herself in him, the shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw. How had she missed it when they first met? "It seems so," he said softly, "though I'm just learning this myself." Emma felt a surge of anger toward both of them, her mother for keeping this secret, this stranger for suddenly appearing and upending her world. Without another word, she bolted from the cottage, ignoring their calls as she ran toward the one place she'd always found solace, the strawberry fields. The afternoon sun warmed her back as she knelt among the familiar plants, the sweet scent of ripening fruit surrounding her. Emma's fingers automatically moved to tend the plants, pinching off runners and checking for pests, tasks she'd done since childhood. Her mind raced, trying to process everything she'd just learned. Her father wasn't some nameless drifter as she'd sometimes imagined. He was Alexander Hartwick, one of the wealthiest men in England, the same man whose store had nearly turned her away that morning. She heard footsteps and looked up to see Alexander approaching cautiously. He'd removed his suit jacket and loosened his tie, small concessions to the informal setting. "Your mother said I might find you here," he said, stopping a respectful distance away. "May I join you?" Emma nodded mutely, and he lowered himself to the ground beside her, seemingly unconcerned about his expensive trousers. "I used to have a vegetable garden," he said unexpectedly, "when I was a boy. Nothing as impressive as this, but I grew tomatoes and cucumbers." "You don't strike me as a gardener," Emma replied, surprised. "There's a lot you don't know about me." He picked up a fallen strawberry leaf, turning it over in his fingers. "Just as there's a lot I don't know about you, 19 years worth, in fact." The pain in his voice was palpable, and despite herself, Emma felt a flicker of sympathy. "It's not your fault you didn't know." "Perhaps not," he conceded, "but I bear some responsibility. If I'd had the courage to follow my heart back then, to choose Lily over family obligation—" "Why didn't you?" Emma asked. Alexander sighed heavily. "Fear, duty. The Hartwick name and legacy were everything to my father. When he arranged my marriage to Caroline, defying him seemed impossible. I was a coward. And now? Now I find I've lost much more than I ever gained through obedience." He looked directly at her, his dark eyes intense. "I've missed your entire life, Emma. I can never get those years back, but if you're willing, I'd like to be part of your future." Emma plucked a ripe strawberry and examined it, buying time as she sorted through her turbulent emotions. "I don't know what that would even look like." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I'd like to find out." From the cottage, they heard Lily calling them in for dinner. Alexander stood and offered Emma his hand. After a moment's hesitation, she took it, allowing him to help her to her feet. Together they walked back toward the cottage, where Lily waited in the doorway, uncertainty written across her face. None of them knew what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time Emma felt the possibility of a complete family, something she'd stopped wishing for long ago. The path ahead would be complicated, filled with years of secrets to unravel and relationships to rebuild. But as the three of them gathered around the old kitchen table, Emma recognized that sometimes life's most unexpected turns could lead to places you never knew you wanted to go. 1 month after Alexander Hartwick's unexpected appearance in Emma's life, everything had changed. The modest cottage now had a new roof, repaired shutters, and fresh paint. The strawberry fields boasted a modern irrigation system, and a small greenhouse stood at the edge of the property for extending their growing season. While Lily had initially resisted these improvements, Alexander had been persistent, arguing that he had 19 years of support to make up for. Emma stood at the window of her bedroom, gazing out at the delivery van pulling up to the cottage. More packages from Hartwick's, Alexander's attempt to provide the material comforts he believed she'd missed. She sighed, watching as the deliveryman struggled with several large boxes. "He's trying too hard," Lily said from the doorway. "I've told him you don't need all these things." "I know," Emma turned to face her mother, "but I think it makes him feel better." Their relationship remained complicated. While Emma had agreed to get to know Alexander, she couldn't simply embrace him as her father overnight. Too many questions remained unanswered, too many emotions unresolved. The previous week, Alexander had invited Emma to tour Hartwick's as his guest. No longer the strawberry seller turned away at the information desk, but the daughter of the CEO, Mrs. Collins, the woman who had dismissed her so coldly, had been horrified to learn Emma's identity. While Alexander had introduced her to department heads and buyers, Emma had felt like an imposter in the gleaming corridors of the store. "You've been invited to dinner at his house tonight," Lily reminded her. "Are you still going?" Emma nodded. "He wants me to meet his son." This revelation had been perhaps the most shocking of all. Emma had a half-brother, James Hartwick, 28 years old, and the store's financial director. Alexander had finally told him about Emma's existence last week. James wasn't pleased, Alexander had admitted during his last visit. He needs time to adjust to the idea, but I'd like you two to meet. Later that evening, Alexander's driver collected Emma from the cottage. As they approached the Hartwick estate in Hampshire, Emma's stomach tightened with nervousness. The sprawling Georgian mansion, with its manicured grounds and stately entrance, made her cottage look like a dollhouse in comparison. Alexander greeted her at the door himself, foregoing the formality of having staff announce her. "Emma," he said, his face lighting up. "You look lovely." She tugged self-consciously at the new dress she wore, one of his gifts, a simple blue silk that reminded her of the cotton dress she'd worn to Hartwick's that first day, though of infinitely finer quality. "Thank you for coming," he continued, leading her through a grand entrance hall into a drawing room where a young man stood by the fireplace, drink in hand. "Emma, this is James. James, meet Emma." James Hartwick bore a strong resemblance to his father, with the same dark eyes and commanding presence, though his hair remained jet black without a trace of silver. He did not smile as he assessed her. "So," he said coolly, "you're the secret daughter." "James," Alexander warned. "It's fine," Emma replied, lifting her chin. "Yes, I suppose I am, though I was as much a secret to myself as I was to everyone else." James raised an eyebrow, perhaps surprised by her composure. "And now you've come to claim your share of the Hartwick fortune." "James," Alexander's voice sharpened, "that's enough." "Actually," Emma countered calmly, "I didn't come at all. Your father found me when I was trying to buy a brooch for my mother. If it were up to me, I'd still be happily selling strawberries without the slightest idea who my father was." An uncomfortable silence fell. James studied her over the rim of his glass, his expression unreadable. Dinner was a tense affair. The three of them sat at a table large enough for 20, attended by staff who moved silently around them, serving course after exquisite course. Emma, unaccustomed to such formality, focused on remembering which fork to use, rather than attempting conversation with her hostile half-brother. "Emma has a remarkable head for business," Alexander said, breaking a prolonged silence. "She's been running the strawberry farm's accounts since she was 16, James scoffed, "hardly comparable to managing a department store empire." "Perhaps not," Emma acknowledged, "but when your profit margin is as thin as ours, every penny counts. One bad season could mean losing everything. And now you don't have to worry about that anymore, do you?" James's tone was pointed. "Now you have access to the Hartwick resources." "I haven't asked for anything," Emma said quietly. "You haven't had to ask. My father has been falling over himself to provide it. New equipment for your little farm, repairs for your cottage, designer clothes." James gestured dismissively at her dress. "The Hartwick name opens many doors, doesn't it?" "That's quite enough," Alexander interrupted. "Emma is my daughter, and I'll provide for her as I see fit." "And what about the company?" James demanded. "Will you be providing her with a position there too, perhaps making her a director alongside me?" Emma set down her fork. "I have no interest in working at Hartwick's." Both men turned to stare at her. "What do you mean?" Alexander asked, clearly taken aback. "I appreciate everything you've done," Emma explained, "but my life is at the farm with Mom. That's the work I know and love." Alexander looked crestfallen. "But surely you'd want opportunities beyond selling strawberries at a market stall." "That market stall has supported my mother and me my entire life," Emma replied, a flash of anger surprising her. "It may seem insignificant to you both, but it's honest work that I'm proud of." James studied her with new interest. "You're seriously turning down the chance to be part of Hartwick's?" "I'm not turning down a chance to know my father," Emma clarified, "but I don't need or want his money or position." An unexpected smile curved James's lips. "Well," he said, lifting his glass slightly, "perhaps you're not what I expected after all." After dinner, Alexander took Emma on a tour of the house. They paused in a hallway lined with family portraits, generations of Hartwicks, staring solemnly from gilded frames. "I'd like to add your portrait," Alexander said, "to make your place in the family official." "I don't belong here," Emma replied, gesturing to the grand surroundings. "This isn't my world." Alexander's face fell. "I've handled this all wrong, haven't I? Throwing money and possessions at you, trying to force 19 years of fatherhood into a few weeks." "It's not that I don't appreciate what you're trying to do," Emma said carefully. But you can't buy a relationship and you can't erase the past. No, he agreed sadly. I suppose I can't. As they stood in silence, Emma noticed a small painting partially hidden between two larger portraits, a landscape showing a sun-dappled strawberry field in bloom. That's beautiful, she said, stepping closer. Alexander smiled softly. Your mother painted it. It was a gift long ago. He hesitated before adding, I've kept it here all these years, even after I married Caroline. It was the one piece of Lily I couldn't bear to part with. Emma stared at her mother's painting, recognizing the view. It was their strawberry field, as it would have looked 20 years ago. Her mother had never mentioned she was an artist. There's so much I don't know, Emma murmured. About both of you. Then perhaps, Alexander suggested gently, we should focus on getting to know each other now, rather than trying to make up for lost time. As Emma's driver took her home later that night, she reflected on the evening's revelations. Her life had become unrecognizable in just a few short weeks, filled with complications and connections she'd never imagined. James's initial hostility seemed to have softened slightly by the end of the evening, but building a relationship with her half-brother would take time, if it was possible at all. And Alexander. Despite his wealth and power, he seemed almost lost in his attempt to forge a connection with the daughter he never knew existed. Behind his commanding presence was a man filled with regret for choices made decades ago. As the car pulled up to the cottage, Emma saw her mother waiting at the window. Two worlds, utterly different yet now inextricably linked through her. Somewhere between them, Emma would have to find her own path forward. 3 months after discovering her true parentage, Emma stood in the grand ballroom of Hartwick's department store, barely recognizing herself in the mirror. Gone was the simple strawberry seller in her worn cotton dress. In her place stood a young woman in an elegant emerald gown, her auburn hair styled in soft waves. The gold strawberry brooch, the catalyst for all that had transpired, glinted at her shoulder. Tonight was Hartwick's 75th anniversary gala, the very event that had brought Emma to the store that fateful day. Alexander had insisted that both Emma and Lily attend as his special guests, overriding Lily's protests that she would feel out of place. You were once the creative heart of this store, he had told Lily. It's time everyone remembered that. Emma scanned the crowded ballroom, searching for her mother. She found her engaged in animated conversation with the head of the jewelry department, gesturing expressively as she described a design concept. In the past weeks, Alexander had convinced Lily to create a small collection of strawberry-inspired jewelry pieces for Hartwick's. The initial sketches had been so well received that the board immediately commissioned a full line to be known as the Lily Bennett Collection. She looks happy, said a voice beside her. Emma turned to find James, immaculate in his tuxedo. Their relationship had evolved tentatively from initial hostility to something approaching cautious respect. She is, Emma agreed. Designing again has brought something back to her, something I didn't even realize was missing. James nodded, watching Lily. She's talented. The preliminary sales projections for her collection are impressive. Always the financial director, Emma teased gently. A hint of a smile touched his lips. It's my job to recognize good investments. Speaking of which, he glanced across the room to where Alexander stood with a young man in a navy suit. There's someone father wants you to meet. Emma followed his gaze curiously. Who? William Parker. He runs an organic farming collective that supplies our food hall. Father thinks you two would have much to talk about. James's expression turned serious. And, for what it's worth, I agree. You might find his business model interesting for your strawberry farm. Before Emma could respond, the orchestra struck up a waltz, and James surprised her by offering his hand. May I? You want to dance with me? Emma asked skeptically. The secret daughter. I want to dance with my sister, he corrected, his voice quiet but firm. It was the first time he had acknowledged their relationship so directly. Emotion tightened Emma's throat as she accepted his hand. As they joined the other dancers, she saw Alexander watching them, undisguised joy warming his features. He raised his champagne glass in a small salute. You know, James said as they moved across the floor, I was prepared to hate you. I noticed, Emma replied dryly. I thought you were after the Hartwick fortune, another complication in an already complicated family history. His expression softened. I was wrong. We're still figuring out what family means, Emma said. All of us. When the dance ended, James escorted her directly to Alexander and the young man he'd mentioned. "Emma," Alexander said warmly, "I'd like you to meet William Parker. William supplies our organic produce section and has been advising us on sustainable practices." William Parker was perhaps 5 years older than Emma, with kind brown eyes and an open, honest face. He shook her hand with a firm grip that spoke of someone accustomed to physical work, despite his formal attire. "Mr. Hartwick has told me about your strawberry farm," he said. "I'd love to hear more about your growing methods." Alexander and James discreetly excused themselves, leaving Emma and William to talk. To her surprise, the conversation flowed easily. William wasn't merely being polite. He was genuinely interested in her work and knowledgeable about strawberry cultivation. "We've been trying to find reliable organic strawberry suppliers," he explained. "The demand at our farmers' markets has been increasing steadily, but consistent quality has been an issue." "Quality has never been our problem," Emma said. "Scale is the challenge. With just my mother and me running things, we can only produce so much. Have you considered expanding hiring help?" "I've thought about it, but it would require investment." William's eyes lit up. "Actually, that's exactly the kind of partnership we're looking to develop. We provide capital for expansion and guaranteed purchase contracts to small organic farms with proven quality." For the first time, Emma saw a future for the strawberry farm beyond mere survival, a way to grow without sacrificing the principles her mother had taught her or becoming dependent on Alexander's generosity. She and William talked through the evening, their conversation ranging from business to personal interests, discovering numerous shared values despite their different backgrounds. As midnight approached, Alexander gathered everyone's attention for a speech. Standing at the center of the ballroom, he surveyed the assembled guests, business associates, employees, and family. 75 years ago, my grandfather opened a small haberdashery on this very site," he began. "He could never have imagined what it would become. Hartwick's has grown beyond his wildest dreams, but one thing remains constant. At its heart, this company has always been about family." His gaze found Emma and Lily at the edge of the crowd. "Some of you may have heard rumors recently about changes in the Hartwick family. Tonight, I'm pleased to confirm them. After many years, I've had the joy of reconnecting with Lily Bennett, former head of our jewelry design department, and discovering that we have a daughter, Emma." A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. Alexander continued, his voice steady. "Life rarely gives us second chances, but when it does, we must seize them. Tonight marks not just the anniversary of Hartwick's, but the beginning of a new chapter for our family and this company." He raised his glass. "To the past that shaped us, the present that unites us, and the future we will build together." After the toast, Emma slipped away from the crowd, finding a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the ballroom's warmth. She heard the door open behind her and turned to see William. "Too much excitement?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "A bit," she admitted. 3 months ago, I was just a strawberry seller. Now I'm the long-lost daughter of Alexander Hartwick, being introduced to hundreds of strangers." "And how does that feel?" Emma considered the question seriously. "Overwhelming, but not entirely bad." She smiled slightly. "I keep thinking about how it all started with a simple brooch. Sometimes the smallest things change our lives the most," William observed. He hesitated, then added, "I'd like to see your farm. Properly, I mean, to discuss the partnership possibilities, but also just to see where those famous strawberries come from." The way he looked at her suggested interests beyond mere business. Emma felt a flutter of something new and unexpected. Possibility, perhaps, or hope. "I'd like that," she replied softly. 1 year later, the Bennett strawberry farm had tripled in size. With William's partnership and business acumen complementing Emma's growing expertise, they had become Hartwick's primary organic strawberry supplier. The farm now employed 5 local workers, with plans to add educational components for school visits. The cottage had been expanded rather than replaced, maintaining its rustic charm while providing more comfort for Lily, whose arthritis treatments, now fully covered by the health insurance Alexander insisted on providing, had improved her mobility significantly. On a warm summer evening, Emma and William walked hand in hand through the strawberry fields. Their partnership had blossomed into romance, their shared passion for sustainable agriculture, providing a solid foundation for deeper feelings. "My mother's new jewelry collection launches next week," Emma said. "Alexander's throwing another gala. James mentioned it yesterday. William replied. "He says the pre-orders have exceeded expectations." Emma smiled, still marveling at how her once hostile half-brother had become a regular visitor to the farm and a staunch advocate for their organic produce line at Hartwick's. They reached the greenhouse Alexander had built, now expanded and filled with experimental strawberry varieties. William stopped, turning to face her. "You know, a year ago when your father introduced us, I never imagined where it would lead." "Neither did I," Emma agreed. "But I'm grateful for it," he continued, taking both her hands in his. "For you, for this farm, for everything we've built together." As the setting sun cast golden light across the strawberry fields, William leaned forward and kissed her gently. Emma's fingers touched the gold strawberry brooch she still wore daily, the symbol of a past love that had given her a future she never could have imagined. From a simple market stall to this moment, her life had transformed completely. Yet through it all she remained at heart the strawberry girl, now with roots that grew deeper and stronger than ever before.